Welcome to Catholic Life as we spotlight ordinary people with extraordinary faith. I'm Dina Dow. I'm so happy that you're with us on this half hour as we spotlight Tyler Morrow, who serves as recruitment coordinator?
Yes.
For CASA. And CASA stands for Court Appointed Special Advocates for Children. So welcome to Catholic Life. I'm so happy you're here.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
You're welcome. Just a little personal background before we get into actually your mission and your role and what you do for CASA.
Yeah,
So you grew up, did you grow up in the Lafayette area? Or
Yes, I grew up in Opelousas.
Gotcha.
Yes.
Okay.
And then I attended LSU here in Baton Rouge, so I've been here the past 5 years. I graduated from LSU in Mass Communications last May, 2022, and in July I started working at CASA. So it was very quick after I graduated. It was a really quick, good opportunity. I loved the mission. My mom had always helped with CASA Christmas, so I knew about the nonprofit, and I thought it was a great opportunity to do marketing for and recruit volunteers because I knew that they really needed it.
That's great. So you've been with them for almost a year, right?
Yeah,
You're coming
I'm
up on
a year, July 18th.
Oh,
yes.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
I know, I'm sure they're delighted to have you.
Thank you.
So let's talk about administratively first about CASA, but I want to kick off with your quote because I went through the website and I love the quote because they were asking all the employees and the staff members, what's your kind of inspirations. And here's Tyler's quote that's on the website. The thing I love most about the mission of CASA is the hope we give children when they are feeling like there's no hope left. CASA is changing stories one child at a time, and I'm so grateful to be part of such an important program. So that's huge.
Yes.
So explain to us about the CASA program and maybe the history, the mission, and what's driving it.
Absolutely. So like you said, CASA stands for Court Appointed Special Advocate. CASA was actually started by a judge in Seattle. He was in the juvenile court and he had to make a really difficult decision about a 3-year-old. And he said, I really wish that there was someone in here who could give me their unbiased opinion, who could tell me the truth to help me make this decision about this child's life. And so this judge started CASA. And CASA is community volunteers. You don't have to have a background in social work, law, just a community volunteer willing to help a child, who follows a child in foster care throughout their court case and kind of sees what's going on behind the scenes in that child's life, and you speak on their behalf in the courtroom.
Oh, wow.
So you are court appointed, so the judge always wants to hear from you, always wants to listen to you. After the whole court case is over, the judge says, now I really want to hear from the CASA volunteer.
Oh, gosh.
Because you have no other motive than wanting to get that child into a safe and permanent home. And so it's really important that these children are all assigned a CASA volunteer because there's a lot of people in the courtroom. There's judges, lawyers, caseworkers, but no one in there is really speaking on that child's behalf. And a 3-year-old can't stand up and say, I don't want to go back here or I should be here. That's what the CASA volunteer is for.
Yeah. Are the children permanently in foster care system at this point, or is there an opportunity for them to go back to their home family?
Yes, so actually CASA's main goal is reunification every single time because a child will always want to go back to their mom, to their dad, and we recognize that. And so we help with if the parents have to go through different things to help them get better. We make sure that they show up to those meetings. We make sure that they are getting better for that child. So we aren't assigned the child until they are put into foster care, but once they are, our main goal is always reunification. And sometimes that's not the case, and then it's just a permanent and safe home for that child.
It seems like the advocate is one that brings up objectivity, right?
Yes.
Yeah. And how do they get to know the child?
So we ask that our CASA volunteer visits the child once a month in person. We also ask that they get to know everyone in that child's life. So that includes teachers, doctors, family members, foster parents, biological parents, everyone in their life. And there's a lot of people moving in and out of this child's life. They're getting moved around, but you are that one constant. You stay with them, so they begin to trust you and they begin to be like, oh, this is not a person who's leaving me. They're staying with me. So there's a certain trust there between the CASA volunteer and the foster child. So it's it becomes easier to get to know them, and they open up to you.
Yeah.
And that's why you have the best version of what should happen for this child.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
So statistically speaking, how many children do you think are in the foster care system in this area?
Right now, a lot. So a little, I think almost 400.
Okay.
And before COVID happened, we were serving every child in East Baton Rouge Parish with a CASA volunteer.
Yeah.
Since COVID, we now have a wait list of about 150 children without a CASA volunteer.
Oh, so they need advocates.
Yes.
Wow.
Teachers are mandated reporters of abuse and neglect, and when these children were pulled out of school because of COVID, no one was reporting the abuse.
Yeah.
And so when they went back to school, children flooded into the foster care system, and now we don't have enough volunteers. Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
So there's always this notion of hopelessness in children. So when a CASA volunteer is assigned, like what's one of the first things that they do for the child?
So when you're first assigned a child, obviously you want to look at their whole case, and you want to see why this child ended up here in the first place, what they're going through. So the first thing to do is not hound the child with questions like, what happened to you? You just kind of create a friendship with them, and you give them hope that they have someone who's there for them. They have someone who's speaking on their behalf. You're just there if they need. You don't want to push anything too far.
Yeah.
And eventually that child will be like, this person I know is going to do what's best for me. And they haven't had that.
Yeah.
And so that's giving them hope. Having, like I said, that constant in their life. They know that their CASA volunteer is going to come and see them once a month. For some of our children, it's the best day of the month for them when they get to see. And a lot of our volunteers go and see their child more than once a month because they just have that great relationship with them. So they're constantly giving them hope.
Yeah. And CASA is not just local, right? It's national.
Yeah,
right?
so we actually
Where does
have
it reach?
17 CASAs in Louisiana.
Really?
Yeah, so I work for the East Baton Rouge Parish one, but we have 17 other ones, and it's nationwide. So it's everywhere. It's needed everywhere.
Yeah.
But especially in Louisiana right now.
Really?
Yes.
Why is there more cases, more foster children in Louisiana than the country?
And Baton Rouge especially.
Really?
Yes. So most CASAs right now do also have a wait list of children who need a CASA volunteer. Ours might be the worst because of how many children have flooded into the and you've seen on the news the children who have been dying from fentanyl. It's really bad here.
Oh my goodness.
Yes.
And as a CASA, an advocate, you can't necessarily work for two children, right? Or do they have multiple children? That
It's
they
rare,
work with?
but sometimes siblings, and sometimes if a CASA volunteer feels that one of their cases is about to kind of end, like they're about to get adopted or reunified, they'll take on another case during that time because our need right now. But usually you're just assigned to one child at a time because it's a lot.
Gosh, I don't think people realize the enormity of the foster care system that's happening. We don't hear a whole lot about it on the news, maybe just kind of bits and pieces of it. But that awareness, I think, too. How would do the foster care children and the need for appointing an advocate come through the court system all the time? Like that's already established, right?
Yes.
So they're already within the court system.
Yes.
And they call you guys and say, or you guys are in touch with that. Like, how does that connection happen?
So we are in constant contact with the court, and we have advocate supervisors at our office. And each of our advocate supervisors are assigned 30 plus volunteers, and they help their volunteers kind of with all the court side of things. Like I said, you don't have to have a background in social work or anything like that. And so we get lists when the children are put into foster care. And since we have this wait list, we've kind of been bumping children up based on how bad the need is, how bad their case is. And the second we get a volunteer, we're assigning them to that child right away.
What do you think the characteristics of a CASA volunteer and advocate, like what kind of characteristics do you think somebody would best serve this role?
Statistically, we only have a few requirements, and you have to be 21, you have to pass an extensive background check, and that's it. and a lot of our CASA volunteers actually have full-time jobs. Like I said, you only have to visit your child in person once every 30 days, and then you have to attend their court cases. But their court cases are usually only every 6 months.
Yeah.
So you really just have to be a person who cares about these children, who wants to fight for them. You have to be a patient person. The court system is a long process. It's a frustrating process.
Wow.
You're going to get frustrated with the people in that child's life. So you have to be a very, very patient person and someone who's willing to work with these children. Sometimes these children aren't easy to work with. And so I would say the biggest thing is patience for a CASA volunteer.
And when a CASA volunteer visits the child, is it always within the home, or can they take them for a little lunch, or like are there restrictions on that? Like, what does that look like?
We are actually the only CASA who allow our volunteers to drive our children around, which is a really, really good thing for us, because our volunteers have said that has made their relationship so much better. You can set up a visit with the foster family. Sometimes the foster families are easy to work with, sometimes they're not. It just depends. If the foster family says no, we always allow you to come to our office and meet with your child. It kind of just depends on the case, but a lot of our volunteers like to take their children out to go to McDonald's or the movies.
Or the zoo.
The zoo, kind of things like that.
Something out of the ordinary, like a little field trip. Plus it takes them out of the situation that they're in, which has its own struggles and changes. It really gives, it seems to me, it would give the child a whole lot more freedom to be open and for that trust to develop and that relationship to grow.
And we've actually been trying to host an event at our office once a month, kind of with games, dinner, everything like that, to allow our volunteers and their CASA child to come, just kind of take their mind off of their craziness. And it kind of sets up an opportunity for that CASA child for the CASA volunteer to be with their child once a month, and we get to plan the whole thing and provide dinner for them.
Well, you get to meet them too.
Absolutely.
And bring everybody
It's been
together.
amazing doing that.
And then the children can see that there are other children in their situation too, right?
Yes, absolutely.
They can relate. Okay, before we have like 30 seconds, so we're going to take a break.
Okay.
When we come back, we're going to talk about a little bit more about the training, the opportunities of fundraising, because it is a nonprofit. So fundraising and then training advocates and different things that you guys have coming up in the fall. So stay with us. We're right back in just a minute.
Send down the fire of your justice. Send down the rains of your love. Come send down the Spirit, breathe life in your people, and we shall be people of God. Call us to be your compassion. Teach us the song of your love. Give us hearts that sing. Give us deeds that ring. Make us ring with the song of your love. Send down the fire of your justice. Send down the rains of your love. Come send down the Spirit, breathe life in your people, and we shall be people of God. Call us to learn of your mercy. Teach us the way of your peace. Give us hearts that feel. Give us hands that heal. Make us walk in the way of your peace. Send down the fire of your justice. Send down the rains of your love. Come send down the Spirit, breathe life in your people, and we shall be people of God. Call us to answer oppression. Teach us the fire of your truth. Give us righteous souls till your justice rolls. Make us burn with the fire of your truth. Send down the fire of your justice. Send down the rains of your love. Come send down the Spirit, breathe life in your people, and we
Welcome back to Catholic Life as we spotlight ordinary people with extraordinary faith. I'm Dina Dow, here with Tyler Morrow, who's the recruitment coordinator for the CASA court-appointed special advocates for children. Got to get that all out
I know.
and straight.
It's a tongue twister.
So in our previous segment, we've been talking about kind of the nuts and bolts of CASA, the need. But when we were talking during the break, we had talked about mentioning that what you mentioned earlier. There were children that are impacted by the fentanyl crises, the drug crises in our area right now. And specifically, there were 2 children that died from fentanyl overdose, but they were little ones. So they're obviously were given that out. I don't know the whole case.
Right.
But you said something very interesting about those 2 babies.
Yeah, so these are children who were on a wait list for a CASA volunteer, and it's sad to think about maybe if they would have had a CASA volunteer, then this wouldn't have happened because, like I said, these CASA volunteers are seeing the behind the scenes.
Yeah.
They're seeing what's going on in this child's life, and they're speaking on that behalf, and who knows, if the CASA volunteer would have been there, that child could have been pulled from the home before the incident happened.
Right, which is so regrettable. So, and we were also talking before COVID, there was a wait list for advocates to be assigned children, right, and to accompany them. But now that's flipped. You have this wait list of over 100 children plus waiting for advocates.
We would have our volunteers go through our training and just kind of be waiting around for a few weeks, sometimes months, for a child to enter foster care.
Yeah.
And these volunteers were like, I'm ready to work, I'm ready to do. And we didn't have a child for them, which is a great thing to say.
Yeah.
But now it, like you said, it has completely flipped. We, like I said, a wait list of over 150 children who do not have a CASA volunteer. And so if there was ever a time to become a volunteer, it is right now.
Let's talk about that. Let's talk about training, application, like anyone is watching and you feel called. What should they do? What's their next step?
Okay, so the first thing we do is we let you hop on a 30-minute Zoom from our office with one of our workers. We have so many dates and times. We're very flexible because of our need right now for volunteers. You get on the Zoom and this person from our office will kind of explain further what it is to be a CASA volunteer. We'll answer any questions you have before committing to our training. So our trainings, we have them about 4 times a year. It's a 32-hour intense training. Wow. It's Tuesdays and Thursdays, 6 to 9 p.m., and then Saturdays, 9 to 3. And in these trainings, it's a lot being a CASA volunteer. You see a lot of horrible things. You're trying to be there for this child. You're trying to speak on their behalf. So in these trainings, they're very intense. We prepare you. We give you false court cases to kind of try to act them out in a way to prepare you for what's to come. And at the end of the training, you're sworn in by one of our juvenile court judges. We have Judge Haney and Judge Grover are the 2 juvenile court judges. They swear you in as a CASA advocate. And right now, we will almost assign you right away a child in foster care. And you're also assigned a advocate supervisor from our office. Okay. And so this person will get you started with your case, will help you meet the child, will help you with your court reports. You will have to write court reports, kind of what's going on, what you're seeing. Like I said, no background in law, social work. That's a common misconception with CASA volunteers. They will help you every step of the way. You are not alone in this. We have someone from our office helping you every step of the way.
It's almost good because you don't, let someone else focus on the law. Let someone else, administer through counseling and social work, which is good. But it sounds like the advocate is all in on the child and what's happening in their surroundings. Right,
exactly.
In their bubble.
Exactly.
Yeah, because I don't know. I mean, if people think that they have to know legalities, and that's not their wheelhouse. Yeah,
right.
They don't have to do that.
And like I said, a lot of people's concern is I don't have enough time or I work, and that's completely okay. We actually still have Zoom court available. So if you have to be at work the day that your child goes to court, the judge will put you up on Zoom, and you'll be able to be on Zoom.
Great.
Like I said, a lot of our CASA volunteers have full-time jobs, and they said it's very manageable to be there for their child, and Yeah.
What's the longest advocate you have serving for you guys right now?
Oh gosh, it's long. We just sent out their anniversary. I want to say 15 years.
Really?
Yes.
Wow.
And that's another thing we're trying to work on is keeping our volunteers.
Yeah,
A lot of our
yeah.
volunteers made their 1-year anniversary this year. And sometimes we ask that our volunteers take a break after a case because it's
hard.
emotionally draining. And so we ask that they take a break, but a lot of them will take like few months break, year break, and then they'll come back and be assigned another child.
Yeah. I can only imagine. I was thinking as you were talking about that, the scripture where Jesus says, bring the little children to me, let the children come to me, one. Then I was also thinking too, that we were talking about one characteristic would be patience, but I was thinking prayerfulness too, like just being steeped in prayer and knowing that the child is a child of God.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And that, we're called to do anything that we can to protect them and make sure that their life is safe because they're just vulnerable.
Right.
Pope Francis tells us, and the church tells us.
Absolutely.
To go to the vulnerable, and take care of them and protect them. And I was always thinking too, that could have been one of us at one point. Like what we would have liked to have happened to us too.
Absolutely. And we see in some of our CASA volunteers, they were in the foster care system.
Really?
When they were younger. Yeah, we do see that. Yeah. And so they're kind of trying to flip the script, change the system. And it's a beautiful, beautiful thing that we do.
Yeah.
And another thing I did not mention, we ask that our volunteers stay with their child's case for at least a year.
Okay.
So some of their cases are going to be shorter, some of them are going to be longer. We just ask for a minimum of a year. We don't see it often that the volunteer will leave after a year. They're so invested. They want to make sure that this child ends up in their safe and permanent home. But that is another requirement that we ask.
And does the CASA advocate have an opportunity to be able to be supported by their advocates in your office? Let's say if I'm having a rough day.
Yes, absolutely. So that's actually something I just started at our office. I started a CASA volunteer Facebook group.
Oh, good.
And so in there, it's a private group. You can only be joined if you've gone through the training. And I let them all in there either rant or give suggestions or say, what do I do if this happens? Or what can I do? Or where should I take my child this weekend? Is there any free movies or anything like that? So I give them an opportunity to all just talk in there. Also, the volunteers who go through the training together, that's kind of their class.
The community,
And so they create group me's or group messages with each other to kind of stay connected. And obviously, each case is very confidential. But you can always ask questions, talk with these other CASA volunteers about it because the advocate supervisors, like I said, are handling 30 volunteers at a time. So sometimes it's easier to just go to a volunteer who's been there for 5 years and say, hey, what did you do when this happened?
Yeah, that mentorship model.
Yes.
Okay, well, we're talking a little bit about the training that's coming up. So we'll talk about the Fiesta in just a minute because that's the fundraiser. So you have training on September 12th, right? And that's the 36-hour
32-hour training.
32 hours.
Yes, so that'll be September 12th. If you want to sign up, we are trying to fill that class. It's a very important class because our next one won't be until November, and we're really trying to get, especially before the school year starts, we're trying to get these kids volunteers immediately. So that starts September 12th. If you want to sign up for that, CASABR.org volunteer page will get you in one of our 30-minute Zooms, and then she'll get you all signed up for the September training.
What's the average size of the class? Do you know? What do you know?
Before COVID, way bigger. Our January class was what we consider pretty big. It was about 26 volunteers.
Yeah, that's a lot.
Unfortunately, our last class that was in June was 7 volunteers.
Okay.
Yeah, so it goes back and forth. We're hoping for a big class in September.
It's just because it was summertime.
Yes.
So I'm going to give you some confidence.
Yes.
And then there's a November 27th, what you call boot camp, right?
Yes.
More intensive.
Yes. So a lot of volunteers say, I really want to be a CASA volunteer, but I cannot commit to a 32-hour training. My schedule's too busy. I can't do 6 to 9 p.m. Totally understandable. So this year, for the first time ever, we're trying our CASA boot camp. And this is going to be a fast track version of it's November 2nd, 4th, 5th, and 7th, I want to say. And it's all on our website. But that'll be a fast track version. It's all day long for only 4 days.
Oh, okay.
And then you're sworn in and ready to be a volunteer.
Wow.
So
Yeah.
if you are that person who is like, I want to do it so bad, but I can't commit,
Yeah.
wait till November. I think that's going to be really good. I'm hoping to have a really big class for November, and then we can start the new year with a bunch of CASA volunteers for these children.
And of course, it's nonprofit, but you have a fundraiser every year. So
Yes.
the fiesta's coming up, right?
Yes, so we are a nonprofit. Fundraising is one of our biggest sources of funding, and we have our big fundraising event, CASA's for CASA Fiesta. It'll be August 20th at Red Stick Social here in Baton Rouge, Sunday, 5 to 8 p.m. We have Superior, drinks, food, live auction, music,
Oh, great.
everything like that. Tickets are $60. We would love, love, love if people who are just interested in CASA to come. We'll have CASA volunteers there that you can speak to, a slideshow of just what we do, everything like that. So if you want to learn more about CASA, I feel like that would be a great event to go to and just to support us because we are a nonprofit, like you
It's
said.
so great. So to close out, we have about 2 minutes left. Do you have one story of a success story of a child that has really just flourished because of an advocate?
There is so many that I can't even count, but yes, like I said, there's just so many. We have so many CASA volunteers who have stayed with their child for over 4 years at some times.
Yeah.
And at the end of their case, and the volunteer gets to either see the child reunified with their mom and dad or adopted. I get adoption pictures all the time, and it's and the CASA volunteer is standing right there with the child. And a lot of our volunteers have relationships with their child after they're adopted. And so, like I said, there's too many to count. It always is a beautiful story with the CASA volunteer and the child.
Yeah. Any last minute things you want our viewers to know about CASA?
Yes. Like I said, if there was ever a time to volunteer, it is right now. These children on this wait list, we don't want them to be swept under the rug. We don't want them to not have a voice. That CASA advocate is their only voice for them to end up in a safe and permanent home. So if there was ever a time, please, now is the time. Go to casabr.org to volunteer.
Yeah. Thank you so much for being
Thank
here. You are
you.
such a beautiful light of Christ for all people.
Thank
I'm
you
just
so
so
much.
grateful for you sharing this time with us and sharing the story. And, best wishes for everyone and prayers, especially for our children and our advocates. So thanks, Tyler Morrow,
Thank you for
being
having
with
me.
us. You're welcome. Thank you for being with us on Catholic Life. Until next time, may God bless you and grant you his peace.